On March 15th, 44 BC, the most powerful man in the world walked into a meeting he thought was routine. He walked in alive. He walked out with 23 stab wounds. And the men who killed him? They genuinely believed they had just saved Rome. They were catastrophically, historically, spectacularly wrong.
Okay, that is a statement. 23 stab wounds. Was that necessary? Like, what was the goal after stab number, 5?
Right? And here's the thing. The autopsy, the actual historical autopsy conducted by his personal physician, concluded that only one of those 23 wounds was fatal.
Get out.
One. The rest were, and I say this with full historical seriousness, basically noise.
So, 22 men stabbed Julius Caesar, to no meaningful effect.
22 stab wounds that could have been 0 if they'd just let one person handle it cleanly. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Welcome to KrypticLore. I'm Marcus.
And I'm Lara. Today, we're going deep on one of the most dramatic, most botched political assassinations in human history, the Ides of March, the killing of Julius Caesar.
But before we get to the blood, let's talk about the man. Caesar was born around 100 BC into an aristocratic family that was broke in practice, even as a teenager, magnetic and dangerously ambitious. A dictator named Sulla once ordered him to divorce his wife. Caesar said no. Sulla reportedly said, "In that boy I see many Mariuses." Trouble from day one.
He was flagged as a threat before he'd even done anything.
Exactly. And then he goes on to do everything. He climbs every rung of Roman political office, runs up massive debts to fund lavish public games because Caesar understood optics. Whatever he set out to do, he always followed through. That is the core of Caesar. By his 40s, he'd conquered Gaul, modern France, Belgium, parts of Germany, crossed into Britain, written war memoirs in the third person. He was beloved by his soldiers and had a battle-hardened army behind him. Rome's Senate was watching and getting very, very nervous.
Yeah, a general coming home with a loyal army and unlimited popularity is not what a Senate of aristocrats wants to see.
Rome was a republic, theoretically. The whole system was designed so no one person got too powerful. In 49 BC, the Senate ordered Caesar to disband his army. He refused and crossed the Rubicon, the legal line Roman law forbade any general from crossing with troops, an act of war against the Republic.
So he committed treason.
He committed open treason and didn't blink. The die is cast. He wins the civil war, Pompey is murdered in Egypt, and by 44 BC, Julius Caesar is declared dictator perpetuo, dictator in perpetuity, forever.
Forever. So he turned the Republic into essentially a one-man show.
Effectively, yes, and a group of senators had seen enough. The conspiracy was led by 2 men. First, Gaius Cassius Longinus, cold, calculating, with a genuine philosophical hatred of one-man rule. And then was Marcus Junius Brutus.
Brutus, the Shakespeare guy.
The very one, and most people miss this. Brutus was Caesar's close, trusted friend. Caesar had supported his career. Some sources even floated the idea that they were so personally close that Brutus might actually be Caesar's own son.
Whoa, hold on.
I'm not saying it's confirmed, but Brutus was the last person Caesar would ever suspect, which is exactly why Cassius needed him. Once Brutus was in, others followed. 60 senators total. Catastrophic operational security.
60 people kept a secret plot to assassinate the most powerful man alive?
60 people, and it nearly leaked. A man named Artemidorus had pieced it all together. He wrote the conspirators' names on a scroll and tried to hand it directly to Caesar on his way into the Senate that very morning.
Caesar didn't read it?
Caesar took the scroll. He held it in his hand the entire time. Other petitions kept getting placed ahead of it. He walked into that room and died with Artemidorus's warning still rolled up, unread in his fist.
That is genuinely one of the most brutal details I've ever heard.
It gets worse. A soothsayer had warned him, beware the Ides of March. His wife, Calpurnia, begged him not to go. Caesar wasn't feeling well and had considered staying home. He was this close to not going.
3 warnings, a soothsayer, a nightmare, and his own gut, and he still went.
Because one of the conspirators, a man named Decimus Brutus, also a close friend, showed up at Caesar's house that morning and talked him out of it. He said the Senate was waiting, that cancelling would look weak. Caesar straightened up and went.
His friend looked him in the face and walked him to his death.
Ice cold. So, March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March. Caesar arrives at the theatre of Pompeii, built by his own defeated rival, where the Senate was temporarily meeting. Caesar sits down, and the conspirators begin to close in. It starts with a senator named Tullius Cimber approaching Caesar with a petition about his exiled brother, a pretense, a distraction. Caesar waves him off. Cimber grabs Caesar's toga and pulls it down off his shoulder. That's the signal.
That's the signal.
Casca strikes first, a glancing blow to Caesar's neck, not fatal. Caesar grabs his arm and shouts in Greek, "Casca, you villain, what are you doing?" Still fighting back, but they all move in. The room fills with daggers. Caesar stumbles and pulls his toga over his face, wanting to die with dignity. And it's in that moment, according to the historian Suetonius, that Caesar looks up through the chaos and sees Brutus, dagger in hand. And Caesar stops. He stops resisting entirely.
He just stops.
He stops. Some sources give us et tu Brutus. Others say he said nothing at all. Maybe seeing Brutus's face was answer enough. 23 wounds later, Caesar died at the base of a statue of Pompeii, at the feet of his old rival, in the building his rival built.
History has a genuinely dark sense of humor. Okay, so the conspirators just killed Caesar. They have to be feeling like heroes, right? Like, mission accomplished, republic saved, everyone's going to celebrate?
They absolutely thought they were heroes. They walked out with bloody daggers raised, shouting, and these are the actual reported words, "Liberty! Freedom! Tyranny is dead!" Brutus genuinely believed the Roman people would celebrate them.
And?
The streets emptied. Romans ran indoors. No cheering, no parade. Caesar had been deeply popular. He'd given land to veterans, reduced debt, funded public works and games. People loved him, and the Senate had just killed him in broad daylight.
So the Senate murdered the people's champion and expected applause?
And here's the staggering part. They had no plan for what came next. None. They killed Julius Caesar and then just stood there. They assumed the Republic would automatically snap back into shape once the tyrant was gone. Breathtakingly naive.
That's like cutting the head off a snake and being surprised there's still a body.
Then comes the moment that seals their fate. Caesar's ally, Mark Antony, is given permission to speak at Caesar's public funeral. Brutus agrees. What Antony delivers is the greatest act of political theater in recorded history. He reads Caesar's will aloud. Caesar had left money to every Roman citizen and his private gardens to the public. Then Antony holds up Caesar's toga, still bloodied, still punctured with 23 holes. He names each conspirator, and the crowd loses its mind.
He weaponized the funeral.
He weaponized the funeral. The crowd riots. They burn down the Senate house and hunt the conspirators. Brutus and Cassius flee Rome and never return. Rome falls into another civil war, and Caesar's heir Octavian emerges victorious as Augustus, the first emperor of Rome.
So the men who killed Caesar to save the Republic actually ended the Republic.
They destroyed the very thing they were trying to protect. The Roman Republic, 500 years old, never recovered. The empire that replaced it lasted for 476 AD in the west and 1453 in the east. 1,500 years of history set in motion by 23 stab wounds in 44 BC.
1,500 years.
And here's the final piece. Every emperor after Octavian called himself Caesar, a title of supreme power. The German Kaiser, Caesar. The Russian Tsar, Caesar. Multiple languages across a millennium, all echoing one man's name. The conspirators tried to erase Julius Caesar. They made him immortal.
That is one of the most extraordinary stories I've ever heard laid out like that. The irony just stacks on irony.
And that's why we're still talking about it 2,000 years later. A story about ambition, friendship, and the catastrophic gap between intention and consequence. 60 men convinced they knew what was best for Rome, who never stopped to ask what Rome actually wanted.
The road to destroying a republic is paved with good intentions.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The Ides of March, people. Never ignore the soothsayer.
And for the love of all things holy, read your scrolls.
Read your scrolls. You just survived the Ides of March. Now go tell someone. Share this episode with anyone who thinks they know this story, because trust me, they don't know all of it. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Who do we put on trial next week? We'll see you in the archives. This has been KrypticLore.